This is Perspective on Athletics, big thinking for small colleges. Sit back and enjoy this episode. Okay, we're here with Josh Erickson of Beyond Sports, and I've known Josh for quite a while since he was a student athlete at Willamette University, and he's gone on to some bigger and better things. So, Josh, I really appreciate you taking time and joining us today for Perspective on Athletics.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Really happy to be here. And yeah, I mean, it's exciting to be talking to someone that also played a role in the founding of our program when you were athletic director at Willamette. So it's fun to think back to where we came from and now where we're at and where we're going. So definitely appreciate you having me on today.
Well, I appreciate the sentiment there. I'm not sure how much of a role I played, but it was also very exciting for me to be a part of that when you were discussing this, and we want to hear more about that. But it was such a great idea, and that's why I was so supportive of it and so happy to see how you've followed this through and now really have a thriving business and providing great opportunities for collegiate student athletes all across the country. So why don't you start out by giving us a little bit of the background about Beyond Sports and how this all got started and why you even, pursued this to begin with.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think like, a lot of businesses or a lot of business ideas, there's a very personal touch to it and a personal story. Ours, the business was started by another Willamette University Bearcat, a former teammate and classmate of mine, Grant Leslie. And when I graduated from Willamette and after playing basketball there in 2007, I had the chance to go to Costa Rica as a part of a volunteer program and coach basketball and teach English. And it was a life-changing experience. I know that phrase gets thrown around probably more than it should, but it was very impactful. And I had an incredible time in Costa Rica and being able to connect with local people through basketball. And so that's really where the idea started, was from that experience and going down to Costa Rica. And I came back and about creating a program to provide opportunities for college athletes or high school athletes to have that similar experience, which is really to use sports to connect with people from different cultures. And that's our big thing with Beyond Sports, is connecting the world through sports. And we believe that sports is so powerful in being able to bring people together. You don't have to speak the same language. You don't have to be from the same country. That a common bond can happen through sports. And so that trip of mine to Costa Rica was really the seed, I guess, that started this whole business and this whole idea. Costa Rica, coming to Willamette University and going to Atkinson, the management school, in order to get my MBA. And this program was, it's funny thinking back, I talked about this program during my acceptance interview with the school and in my essays, and this is what I wanted to use my MBA in order to create, and we were able to do that and spent 2 years at Atkinson working on this, and alongside Grant. Grant had played football and basketball at Willamette, and both of us had always wanted to study abroad, but we always felt a commitment to our teammates and our sport and never really considered it because we thought it was impossible for athletes. And so after having my experience in Costa Rica, and it was such a powerful experience, and then Grant during graduate school had a chance to study abroad in Copenhagen and do a business program over there. And he also had that personal experience of, wow, studying abroad is incredible. The people you're able to meet, the perspective that it gives you. And so our passion came from our own personal experiences. Mm-hmm. And so then it was, okay, how can we create a program for, student athletes specifically? And so it was working with coaches at Willamette University, getting feedback from coaches and their experience, athletes that have gone abroad, what kind of program would be beneficial. Like I mentioned, having support from you and the athletics department. And then also working with the International Education Office at Willamette University. And, we did a lot of research and found that student athletes were studying abroad at a much, much lower rate than the general student population. So it was trying to understand that and break down some of those barriers. And so during that 2-year process, we worked on it with classmates at Atkinson, with, professors at Atkinson, and were able to create a business model. And then following our graduation in 2010, we ran our first program 2 months later. So it was a quick turnaround and a lot of fun to start the program. And obviously in any business, things are going to change from the first time you write a business plan to when you start actually doing it and growing it. And our business continues to evolve. Our programs continue to evolve. but it really is something that, we're proud to say it came from Willamette University and our experience as student athletes. And then also, once I started coaching at Willamette as an assistant coach with the basketball team, understanding things from the coach's perspective. And so that's really where the program came from and kind of its inception.
Well, it's interesting looking back, and we're talking about almost 4 years ago, I guess, when you entered the MBA program at Willamette, and you and Grant. And I know that a lot of people within that program are creating their business plans and coming up with their ideas and getting through school, and they're making their presentations. And I'm not sure how many of them actually, come to fulfillment and turn into real businesses. Yours did. When you're back in school and trying to put this together, obviously you had some passion behind it, but did you really think that when you graduated 2 months later you were going to be implementing your business plan and starting this business?
I mean, I think we did, and that's, I think, what it does take for an idea to go to a business or for things to really happen is you have to be so passionate about it. And for myself and Grant, I mean, this program combines really a lot of the things that we're passionate about. And, you got to decide, not only do you want to, start a business and play that administrative role, but on a day in and day out basis, is this what you want to spend your time doing? And for me, as someone, as a basketball coach, basketball has always been my passion. It was, okay, we're combining sports with, international travel, experiencing other cultures. And all of these things that are important to me, as well as, running programs for local youth that we do in Costa Rica, and that component of using sport for international development. These are things that we felt so passionate about that it wasn't just, words on a paper or in a business plan. Those things are always great to, to create, but then you got to go do it and you got to commit to it. And, the passion that we have, and that's why we worked on it 2 years, and it was, okay, let's go and do this. And we knew it was going to be very difficult, but very exciting, and an exciting journey. And so I just think that passion for our mission and what we do of using sports, to really connect cultures and to bring people together is something that still, drives us every day as we go along this journey.
Well, I remember thinking back to our conversations, one of the challenges seemed to be for student athletes, for some, there can never really be a good time to study abroad given their commitments to athletics. And if it's a semester abroad or a year abroad, most of them are not going to be willing to give up a season of eligibility to play in their sport. So what was some of the research, and is that a big part, was that a big part of the discussion when you were figuring out, okay, how are we going to make this work? Because student athletes' lives are very different than typical students. So how much did that factor in?
I mean, it was a huge factor, exactly. I mean, coming from our own personal experience, and then we research at Willamette University groups and surveys, and as well as other universities to really understand, the student athlete experience better, and what are the barriers preventing athletes from wanting to go abroad and make that decision. And like you talked about, one of the big ones is when programs are offered, a lot of students that do study abroad programs, general student population, going for semester programs. And, that model doesn't necessarily fit the student athlete. And I always think back to when I was coaching basketball at Willamette, and we went down and played in a tournament, played against Pomona Pitzer in the fall. And they had 3 juniors that were studying abroad. There were 3 starters that decided to sacrifice their entire fall semester and the fall basketball and the games and all of that in order to study abroad. And, on the one hand, I love that their coach and the university administration were supportive of them having that study abroad experience. But as a basketball coach and as a former basketball player, part of me was thinking, wow, that we're asking them to sacrifice a lot. Obviously the great thing about Division III sports is that it's not just about being an athlete. It is the student athlete and combining those things in a powerful way. But asking them to, sacrifice their athletic career or a semester, that's a big thing to ask of a student athlete. So, creating programs that not only fit the schedule of student athletes, summer programs or Jan term programs, but also, designing the program specifically to include, training and other components to allow them to really maximize that study abroad experience. Those were big parts of the process for us in developing our programs, and something that we're still learning about today as we work with more and more student athletes. how can we continue to improve our program offerings and what we do in order to better serve student athletes so they can have this, amazing experience.
Right. And so I think it fits a need that existed, and you've really developed this over the last several years here. So take us through, what are some of the programs that you offer? What are ways that college student athletes can get involved, and where did it come from? What was your first program, and what does the program look like today in terms of opportunities?
Right. So, our initial program, which is still our core program for Beyond Sports, is a 4-week summer program where student athletes from all different sports will come to Costa Rica, and the majority of the students will enroll in a Spanish language course, a month-long intensive course. And, being in Costa Rica, obviously Spanish is the first language. And so the students you can enroll in the course at one of 2 universities that we work with down in Costa Rica. Have partnerships with the 2 top universities in Costa Rica, so we're really fortunate to be working with them. And they'll be in class for 4 hours each morning taking that Spanish course. So over a month, they get 80 contact hours of Spanish learning, and then really it's combining that with the additional things that we do, the cultural components of the program, in order to develop their Spanish. And what I mean by that is the students in that 4-week program will stay with local host families. And, that plays such a big role in Spanish development. You're at the breakfast table, asking for the jelly, for toast Spanish, or with your family practicing Spanish. But it also goes beyond that. And it's, that cultural element and really experiencing people and getting to know people down there. And that's such an important part of our program. And why, one of the reasons why Grant and I have committed to living in Costa Rica as well, that we've never wanted to just be a travel agency. We wanted to have a presence in Costa Rica as far as relationships with people. And we thought that creating that culture with our program and our organization, would enhance the experience of our students as well. And so there's that element of living with a family, experiencing the culture, and then also the coaching the sports camps. So then during the 4 weeks, students will go out, and 2 days a week they'll spend time coaching kids, and they're able to practice their Spanish. They're able to interact with local kids. So you combine all these things, and the growth that a student can make over 4 weeks as a Spanish speaker is incredible. And on the other side of it, they're also able to get college credit for it, which is very important as well. And so typically students will earn, depending on the university and how they transfer credit and how they operate that, they'll typically earn 4 Spanish language credits, so a semester worth of Spanish credit over that 4 weeks. So that's really our main program, is a 4-week Spanish program. But now, we've expanded into offering what we call competition tours as well. And those are shorter, typically 10 days, where, they're sports specific. And those programs, the athletes will come down for 10 days, travel throughout Costa Rica, and actually compete against our local teams in Costa Rica. And so, students are also able to combine those 2 programs if they'd like to stay for 6 weeks. And we feel like that is the best program, of having the 4-week, more typical study abroad experience where you're enrolled in a class, living with a family, and then combining that with a 10-day competition tour where, for example, if it's basketball, you're, playing with basketball players from all over the United States, from different universities, and now competing against the best teams that Costa Rica has to offer. And you end up spending a total of 6 weeks. So those are the programs that we offer for individual students. The academic programs, they're 4 weeks or longer. We also have the semester programs on the academic side. And then there's the 10-week shorter competition tours, which also allows us to get coaches involved from the United States. So coaches will come down, actually coach the teams on those competition tours. And, college coaches will get to have their own experience as well in Costa Rica.
So it's not just an entire team coming down for these competition tours, but it's actually individuals, and then they come together and will practice and form a team and go out and compete against the locals?
Exactly. So those, typically how those work, like we'll use last year, for example, we had a coach from Kenyon University, their women's basketball coach, Suzanne Helfont, incredible coach that's been at Kenyon for a number of years. She decided to coach one of our tours, and so she had 2 players from her team that join the tour. And for basketball, that's the NCAA rule is that it has to be 2 or less. Otherwise, it would count as your foreign tour, your team trip that you're allowed to do once every 3 or 4 years based on which division you are. And so she had 2 players from her team, and then we had players from 8 other schools from throughout the country that were also part of that tour. And so the programs that I was previously talking about are for individual students. And then we also offer actual team trips where the group will come down together and, come down and be able to have that similar itinerary of competing against local teams, running basketball clinics or whatever sport, volleyball, soccer, baseball. But that would be coming down with the team from their university. So again, there are a number of programs that we offer, both for individual students that would like to come down, and then also for full teams that want to come down on a team trip.
Got it. In regard to NCAA rules or NAIA rules, obviously you've got the issue with a coach coming down and a limit on the number of players. But are there any other eligibility issues for student athletes when they participate in any of your programs?
Well, we're very clear with the student athletes, and for example, with basketball, you're going to be able to compete and play with teams while you're down there. That's a big part of our longer programs. Is we don't want student athletes to study abroad and feel like they're sacrificing their off season. We have our own gym in Costa Rica that's right by the university, where every day after class we have a strength and conditioning workout. There are individual skill workouts for the different sports. And so we want not only for the students to have an incredible cultural experience, academic experience of being abroad, but we want them to come back, better prepared for their upcoming season than when they left. And so that's a really important component to our program as former athletes and coaches. And so included in that would be students going and practicing against local teams. Now, students aren't playing on local club teams or anything like that. And so we're very clear with students that this isn't a come down and you're not now going to be a professional soccer player, professional volleyball player, or professional basketball player. It's the chance to interact with local players and practice and compete and train with them. And so that's something that, we make sure and discuss with the students prior to coming down and doing our program.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I know you've worked with dozens and dozens of schools, and so a lot of student athletes are taking advantage of this. Your growth over the last few years seems to be phenomenal. So about how many programs are you working with, and what seems to be the most popular route for schools or for student athletes?
Yeah, so, we've experienced incredible growth these first 3 years going into our 4th summer of programs. And, I got to give all the credit in the world to our staff, and Grant Leslie really heads up that part of our program and working with the universities and recruiting students that we feel like are a great fit for our programs. And we've been fortunate enough to work with over 80 universities to date, which is really exciting. Majority of those are Division III institutions. And we feel like our programs are a great fit for Division III schools, but also, Division II, even Division I, NAIA. And so now it's expanding into some of these other areas. As far as the team trips, we've had worked with Division II, also University of California, San Diego. Their men's basketball team, came on a team trip this last August. Thomas Moore's women's basketball team, Kentucky came down last May. So we've worked with a number of schools on the team trips as well, and that's something that we're continuing to grow and have a number of teams committed to come down next summer. Cal Lutheran, their men's basketball team will be joining us next August 2014. So again, we have a number of different programs, and it's not that any program is better or any program is worse. It's just really there's a number of different experiences. Our core program is still our 4-week summer academic program. And we love what that program entails of being able to stay with a family and really being able to invest in the community during that time. But that program doesn't fit every, specific student athlete or every team. And so the other programs are great as well. The short term, whether it's a competition tour or whether it's a team trip, they're just offering something a little different. It's more of an experience versus coming down and having that long term where you're living with a family and that cultural immersion. It's really more of a short term, competition tour. So, they all offer something a little different depending on what each student athlete or each team or school is looking for.
Now, you mentioned that your core program is the kind of the 4-week academic program, and that student athletes can earn college credit for those. Are there some programs that do not earn college credit but are still available and people are taking advantage of?
Yeah, so the short-term competition tours that we were talking about earlier that are typically 10 days long, students will not earn college credit for those. So that's more of, hey, I want to use my sport, whether it's basketball or baseball, soccer, volleyball. I want to use that to experience another country, to compete with the country, to interact with kids through sports camps, to travel throughout Costa Rica. That's something that we haven't even talked about yet. That it's just a beautiful country, beautiful people, world famous for being a peaceful country and how friendly the people are. And I feel like that's why I've lived there for so long and been so passionate about it, as well as the people have embraced, us like family. And it's just a great place to live, in addition to, world-class beaches and rainforests and being able to travel and have those experiences. So those shorter 10-day competition tours, the students aren't, earning college credit. It's really more of the experience of coming down versus the 4-week program where they're able to enroll in a Spanish course, as well as, elective courses that are taught in English, if they'd like to do that.
Right. Now, it sounds like basketball is also one of your core sports, too, and understandably that's your background, and I certainly appreciate basketball, too. But are there other sports, and how do you coordinate that? Is it dependent upon any given year's inquiries or need, or what about sports beyond basketball?
Yeah, so really how we've structured this is, having staff members that are responsible for each sport. And, so our programs don't change for, all right, this year we're going to focus on basketball, and next year we're going to focus on baseball. One of our strategies that we've really committed to as we've grown this program has been to really invest on the ground in all of these sports. And what I mean by that is our baseball director, Nick Holmes, who's an American from California, has been a scout with a couple different major league teams for a number of years. He moved down to Costa Rica and is the director of our baseball programs. And he's actually the head coach for Costa Rica's men's baseball team, for the national team. And they competed in a Central American tournament this last spring against, Panama, Nicaragua, all the other Central American countries. So he's in charge of our baseball programs. Soccer would be a similar kind of story. We're really excited about a new staff member we added in 2013. Her name's Sylvia Betancourt, and she played Division I soccer in the States at Liberty University over in Virginia. But she's a local Costa Rican that joined our staff, and she's our soccer coordinator. And so, all of our programs are run by someone that, is specialized in that sport. And so what that entails is, if we have a soccer student that comes down, they'll be a part of our strength and conditioning program like all the other students. But then Sylvia would set up, those students to go and practice with local teams and compete. And then also the soccer clinics that we do. So we really do specialize by sport. For all of the sports that we can. It's a little more challenging for some of the sports that maybe aren't offered in Costa Rica as much. The main sports in Costa Rica would be, soccer, basketball, volleyball, baseball. But we also have ambassador programs for American football, softball, and lacrosse, just to name a few, as well as the other sports, where you can really come down and help grow those sports and like the name says, and be an ambassador for that sport as we try to grow, youth sports leagues in Costa Rica for those specific sports.
Got it. Now, what kind of timeline are you operating on, Josh, for these programs? So, for instance, a summer program, are there deadlines that people should be aware of, and how do they handle that? Just contacting you through your website, and then you would go from there. But what kind of timelines do you operate on?
Yeah, so obviously when you're doing any kind of international program, international travel, trying to plan everything as far in advance is the best way to do it. That isn't always the case when you're working with college students. So the deadline for our summer programs is we try to have the final list of our students, everybody that's committed, to have that by the start of April. So that gives a couple months before the June and July programs, which are our May programs. Now, really the timeline also depends on the specific program, because we do offer programs year round. And so it's really just having a few months prior to each program where the students let us know when they're coming, and we're doing our recruiting. And so, we're in contact with coaches throughout the year, providing them information on our programs, providing the university, whether it's athletic offices or the international education offices, we're providing them information throughout the year. Hey, there's a deadline coming up for our, summer program. Please, pass along information to any of your interested students. And, so we really are doing that recruiting and working with coaches, throughout the entire year.
Got it. Well, you have a great website, and it's very informative, so I encourage people to check it out. It's at beyondsportscr.com, and CR stands for Costa Rica, I take it.
Yes.
But it's a very informative website. And one of the things, Josh, you mentioned at the very beginning, the life-changing experience you had by studying abroad, and that's a big component of what you're trying to provide. What is the reaction from the students that have gone through your program been? I mean, what are some of the stories, or what are the reactions that you're getting from the kids that have gone through the program?
I mean, not only, there's so many highlights, I think, for all of our staff and Grant, Leslie, and I, the co-founders, in doing this. And the response of students when they go home is up there with anything. We keep all the letters and that we get that students send us, and have all the emails saying, this was the best experience I've ever had in my life. And obviously you can't guarantee that, because the students are going to anybody when we're selling the program, because students are going to get out of it what they put into it. But that's our goal. And that's what we try to encourage, is that they come down and that they can use this to really grow as young leaders and young adults, and grow as athletes and students, and that it is one of the best experiences of their life. And so getting that feedback from past students is so much fun for us. And I think one of the ways that we can kind of look at each other and as a staff and hold each other accountable to know we're running programs that are impacting students is to know that students always want to come back. And that's just a great barometer for us. And it's so exciting that, when students do our program as a student, almost all of them, and so many of them, want to come back the following summer as interns, or come back at a later point and work with us. And that's so much fun. And so we've had a number of students that have been students and then have come back down later, in order to be interns and play a role. And that's really rewarding for us. And it's great feedback. And it's also great feedback and really rewarding for, I think, Costa Rica, because that's a main thing with our program too, is I think we run great programs, but Costa Rica is such a beautiful place, and the people there and how they embrace our students and how they embrace our staff and our Beyond family. It's incredible. And, every year I kind of think, well, am I going to transition to spending more time in the States and coming back? And every year I get involved in more things down there. And I think that's why it isn't just, like I said, being a provider or a travel agent. We have roots in Costa Rica, and it is a home for us. And so, having that component and those strong feelings about Costa Rica, and then running the programs, I think the way we do, you just get students that want to come back and be a part of it. And it's just so much fun to see that.
Yeah. Well, I think that adds credibility too, on both sides. From what you're selling, you can talk about what it's like to be down there, and also from the Costa Rican standpoint, I think too, they trust you. You're becoming one of them, so it's a little bit different when you're doing business with somebody that is actually immersed in the culture. So, Josh, I think you've done a great job of building this thing, and it's providing lots of opportunities for student athletes to learn from the study abroad experience, and it's been great to talk to you. But before we go, you're also keeping busy with some other project, aren't you? The basketball coach for the Costa Rican national team?
Yeah, I mean, and again, this just comes back, I think, to the way we built the program and being it and committing to, really working with people in Costa Rica and being a part of the local sports communities. And, at baseball and basketball and volleyball and soccer, our staff are working with national teams and professional teams, club teams. And, last year I had the chance to coach our women's national team, and we went to El Salvador for a Central American championship. And it's an incredible experience to represent Costa Rica. And now being with the men's senior national team, and we're preparing for a tournament in Mexico next June. It makes me a little emotional to even talk about and think about it, because, I'm not Costa Rican, but it is like my second country, and, having the chance to represent Costa Rica in these international tournaments. And I mean, it's just an incredible honor. And it's also, on the basketball side and a coaching side, it's incredible. We have great athletes in Costa Rica, great basketball players specifically, and so being able to work with them and compete with them and encourage them as we compete in these tournaments, just an incredible opportunity. And I've learned so much from coaching in Costa Rica that I just can't say enough about it.
Yeah. Well, you've got a good thing going, Josh, and surely it's been a labor of love, and you've really made the most out of it. BeyondSportsCR.com is where people can learn more about the programs that you're offering, but great opportunities for collegiate student athletes to study abroad, continue to work on their athletic skills, whether immersed in Costa Rican culture. Lots of great programs. And Josh, I just want to thank you again for joining us, and maybe we'll have you back in a little while and give us an update on how things are going.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Mark. And again, I meant what I said at the start. People like yourself and Willamette and Chris Liu, the international education director, that really played a key role in the start of this program. And so it's fun to kind of circle back and now for us to be able to share and talk a little bit about it because there's been a million people that have played a big role in helping us. So, thanks for taking the time, to learn more about it and share about it, and definitely would love to come back and give an update as we continue to grow. And who knows, maybe in a couple of years we'll be in another country and be running some other programs in other parts around the world.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, Josh. It's great to see you again and great talking to you, and best of luck in the future. And again, BeyondSportsCR.com. Josh Erickson has been our guest today on Perspective on Athletics. Thanks again, Josh.
Thanks, Mark.